Hey guys, before we get into the video, I just want to take a quick 2 minutes to give you all an inside look at what This is Bracket Racing Elite is all about. My name is Jordan Pratt. I'm a long-term Elite member myself, but I also work alongside Luke and Kevin to help coordinate activities, marketing, things like this. So let's get started. Here we have our Elite Facebook group. At the top, you'll see a pinned video. This represents this week's current training. But as we scroll through, we see posts from Luke, other members, previous training videos, interviews, new member welcome posts, a lot of cool stuff going on within the group. One of the nice features about the group is its ability to search for content. So let's say you want to become a better finish line driver. Go ahead and type in finish line and you immediately find all previous mentions of the words finish line in videos, posts, comments from Luke or other members all in one spot. But what's even better than this is our Elite training directory. This is something that's updated on a weekly basis and houses all previous training content from videos, articles, and everything in between. All the content is organized into 8 simple categories, so it's easy to find what you're looking for. You can scroll through this at your own pace and watch whatever interests you. Let's get back to the Elite Facebook page. This is what you've been waiting for, right? As part of this, we wanted to offer you a free Elite training video. We've selected a video titled Strategic Flexibility Part 2. It was very popular within the group and we really hope you enjoy it. If you enjoyed this video and want to find more, join This is Bracket Racing Elite for hundreds of videos just like this one.
Alright gang, for this week's training I said that we would get into some specifics. If you watched last week's training, Strategic Flexibility Part 1, you know that I spent a lot of time talking about basketball. And yes, that was absolutely a sneaky way of me intertwining hoops with work, but I do hope that it was logical and it was relevant. The topic of employing strategic flexibility in racing tends to be looked at as something extremely complex, like some sort of black magic. I don't think it has to be, and I'm going to do my best to explain it in as simple and common of terms as possible. I think it's typical and helpful to come into each round with a target package, so to speak. Okay, and I think this is the easiest way to explain this thought process, right? And this thought sequence, so to speak. So let's say that we're in an 8th mile top ball bracket race, and our target package is to lay down 15 total, right? I think that's pretty common, and obviously that would vary if we were in quarter mile competition or certainly a spread out NHRA race or a bottom ball competition. But in an 8th mile bracket race, I think that 15 total is like a pretty common target. Now, the actual number isn't super important, so let's not get hung up on it, but for the purpose of this discussion, I'm going to reference back to that 15 thousandths total package target repeatedly. Now, if we come into the round and our goal is to lay down 15 total, most of you guys understand, like, there's a ton of different ways that we can get there. We could be 008 and dead on 7. We could be perfect and 1 above with a 5. We could be 15 and dead on with a 0. We could take this a step further and we could be 8 take 7. You know, it's basically the same math, or 10 take 5, or 5 take 10, or whatever the case may be. Strategic flexibility allows us to step back and very simply say, how can I reach that 15 thousandths target in this specific round of competition? Okay, and I think that always starts with the obvious first question is, how confident am I in my car? Or for this specific round, like, how confident am I in my dial-in? Like, if you come into a round and or I come into a round and let's say that I'm super confident that I'm going to go dead on 5 or better if I hold it to the floor, right? I'm going to be between dead on with a 0 and dead on with a 5. Cool. Like, if I can be low 00 here, like, that's awesome, but I probably don't have to be. Like, and that's not to say that I'm going to come into this with a conservative strategy and I'm not going to get passive, but it's not uncommon for us to string together a day of racing where we have one outlier reaction time that's like 5 thousandths quicker than the rest. And commonly, the the decision is whether to throw that out and set up red off of that one quick light, that make all the rest of your lights, like low double O or mid double O or whatever the case may be, or to go ahead and cover it with the knowledge that 4 out of your 5 runs are within a 5 to 10 thousandths window, that with enough delay in to make that one green, make all the rest like 7 to 15 or something like that, right? Well, in this instance, where I'm really confident that I'm going to go low dead on, like I wouldn't ever pull that out and set up red, because if I don't have that glory hit again and I come up 7 or 8 or 10, like that should be okay. Like I'm still going to lay down 15 total. And if I lay down 15 total and the guy beside me lays down 12, like I'll go shake his hand, good job, right? I didn't make a bad run there. So that's when you like are super confident that you're going low dead on. Let's scale that back like one notch and say like I'm pretty confident that I'll go dead on with something, right? Like I'll be dead on between dead on 0 and dead on 9 if I hold it to the floor. Great, but like let's make sure that we're double O here so that we still get right around that 15 total mark. Maybe better, it may be a 10 package, it may be an 18 package. We're going to be right in that range. And then you scale that back another step and you go like, I really don't know what I can run. Okay. Now, in that instance, I think it goes without saying that you got to get way more aggressive on the starting line, regardless of the strategy that you adopt, because you're just not that confident in being able to post up a number at the other end of the racetrack. So in this instance, I think a red light is a much more forgivable offense, because in all likelihood, in order to lay down the run that you're trying to make and match that target package, like you gotta be really, really good up front. And if your car is not particularly good anyway, you're probably not going to win unless you are really good up front. So what does a red light really hurt? Okay. And then too, when you are faced with that situation where like, okay, I don't really know what I can go, obviously more often than not, we're going to flip to the driver strategy there, because we have to. Like we're going to try to make our 15 package, rather than be in 005 and 1 above, we're going to try to make that package be in 005 and take 10 at the stripe, right? Because 10 take 5 or 5 take 10 is the exact same as being 10 dead on 5, unless, of course, you're involved in a double breakout. This is where situational acceptance, like I guess, really comes into play, because 10 take 5 and 10 dead on 5 are the same run, multiplied by the percentage of your opponent running over. Or 10 take 5 is as good a run as 10 dead on 5, assuming that your opponent matches or is over their dial in. The kryptonite for the driver strategy is the opponent that matches you on the tree and then breaks out specifically by a little bit, because if we do our job, we're going to lose that round every time. We have a good light, we take a small amount of stripe, we're further under on the breakout. So the question is, given the resources and the information that you have available, what are the odds that your opponent can go under in this specific round? Sometimes that chance is high. Sometimes it's not. And that has to play into your strategy. Now, what alters that perception? Like, a lot of it is just racetrack, round trends, weather in general. Like, if it's the heat of the day and it's dog slow, like the odds of anybody going under, not great typically. If it's the round after dark and everything's cooled off, or the track, the starting line is in the shade, like there's probably more than 50% of the field will break out in that run, and this is not a particularly good play. Plus, if you have any specific insight to your opponent, like if you saw a previous run and know what they're dialed now and think, I don't think he can run that, like, then you're probably best served to take the driver strategy. If you saw them like recently run 200s faster than they're dialed, right? Like that makes that a little bit more questionable decision. Again, situational strategic flexibility comes into play. So when you're faced with a fast round, and what I deem a fast round, like the weather is better, the track's better, or just the scoreboards in front of you show like everybody's breaking out, and you don't, even though you don't necessarily have a great explanation as to why, but it appears to be a fast round, like in that instance, Sometimes approaching the round as the driver is probably gives you your best chance, but like in a fast round specifically, don't be dead set on that. And then vice versa, when it looks to be a really slow round, I don't care how confident you are in your race car, like you probably shouldn't be as dead set on being the dialer, right? Most opponents should miss it to the high side. Like, give yourself some room and try to drive the finish line here. Keep in mind that when I say that, obviously our ability to drive the finish line with precision is contingent on a variety of factors having to do with our opponent, namely their speed and proximity to our speed. I think most of us, I don't think it's a stretch at all to say that most of us are much more comfortable and competent driving the finish line at a similar speed to our opponent, or as the slightly faster car, the slightly slower car. When that speed discrepancy widens to 20, 30, 40 miles per hour in either direction, our ability to confidently and consistently manage the finish margin goes way, way down, like for anybody. So, and then in addition to that, knowing your certain specific opponent and their tendencies, that can obviously vary our ability to successfully drive the finish line. Like, if we know that our opponent 99% of the time is going to give us a quote unquote clean wheel, meaning that they're the strict dialer and they're just going to hold it on the floor, well, that opens up our realm of possibilities. Like, we can basically go into this round feeling pretty comfortable applying any number of finish line strategies because the look's not going to change in the other lane. Okay, really the same thing if your opponent is a known and consistent spot dropper. That makes things a little bit more difficult because they're going to change momentum, but it's not that difficult when you know that it's coming. Okay, and you say this and you're like, Luke, how do you know what your opponent's going to do? And in truth, we don't. Like, there are several opponents that we race that like they don't know what they're about to do. So how on earth could you game plan for it, right? But every racer has tendencies. And I apologize, I'm a little bit under the weather here. You can see my eyes water, and this isn't really that emotional a thing to me. But every opponent has tendencies, and every opponent has a go-to move, and whether that's something that you have seen them do in the past from the other lane or from watching at the finish line or have picked up on through live timing and online data, like, just keep in mind that I have tendencies, you have tendencies, every opponent that you have has tendencies and has like a go-to, and you can use that to your advantage. And then the scariest opponent is the opponent that, much like what we're trying to get to, the opponent that has that strategic flexibility, that is willing to change it up based on conditions, based on the situation, based on what you're doing in the other lane. Then this becomes more of a chess match, right? And there's more opportunity to really overthink things. I don't want to spend too much time on that aspect because, to be completely honest, we tend to give competitors way too much credit, and we're talking about like the 1 to 2% there, right, that truly have this strategic flexibility and the willingness to apply it from round to round. So again, like, that kind of goes back to that column on ThisIsBracketRacing.com, one of the old written trainings, strategize for the 99%, not necessarily the 1%. I think most of us tend to spend a lot of time thinking about how we're going to approach that round with Tommy Phillips or Peter Biondo or Scotty Richardson, when in reality, we run those guys like 1% of the time. So if you do adopt the driver strategy, like, how aggressive do you need to be now at the finish line? We've already said that usually when we go the driver route, we're going to be a little bit more aggressive on the starting line. How aggressive do we need to be at the finish line? Again, it's just math, and we're going to go back to that goal of laying down 15 total. If you're set up super tight on the tree, you feel like you wrecked it. When the car hits the tires, you think, oh my God, I can't believe that turned green. Like, there are times when you feel fairly confident that you were like 005 or better up front. In that instance, like, don't give it back, right? Like, still, you want to be aggressive and do a good job at the finish line, but if you take 10 here, you're probably fine. right? What you don't want to be is 1,000th behind. Along these same lines, like if you're approaching that same round as more of the dialer, and again, you think like you can go low dead on, but you're confident that you just wrecked the tree, right? You're between perfect and 005. Like odds are, and let's say that this is a big speed difference. Like say I'm in my 450 car and I'm running a 680 door car. I just wrecked the tree. I think I can go low dead on. Like I'm not going to claim to be able to see the finish line particularly well, but I'm probably at that point just going to go ahead and kill like 5,000ths real late just to make sure that I'm not under. And if that changes my dead on 3 to dead on 8, well, I'm still confident that those 5 are better on the tree, so I'm still going to match or better that target package. Again, I'm just kind of playing the odds and based upon my perception, trying to reach that target package and make sure, because in that instance, I'm probably more likely to lose by going 1,000th under than by laying down like 14 total to my opponent's 12 total. You know what I mean? Okay, now along that same lines, like let's say that you let go and you think, ooh, I didn't get all of that, or you just haven't had a good window on the tree all day and you don't know exactly where you're supposed to be set up, and you leave and think, okay, I was probably subject to be like 15 or so there. Okay, so as the driver, as the dialer here, if you set up to go low dead on, like you got to hold it to the floor and hope it rings up low dead on, right? Unless it's an obvious decision, like you're obviously getting there first at the finish line. And as the driver, like if you're trying to wheel your opponent through, that's the time typically to be super aggressive at the finish line and try to take nothing. You know what I mean? Like, and if you end up getting 1,000 behind, you end up getting 1,000 behind. But odds are, and again, unless track position dictates that, like, whoa, there's way more room here than I thought, my opponent's not making a great run, odds are this is the time where you really need to tighten it up. So what I'm getting at, and I know we just went through a lot of things in a short period of time, but I think that strategy largely, we tend to make it really complicated, and it's not, or it doesn't have to be. It's simple math. What's your best bet to get to that target package, whatever that may be, in this specific situation, on this racetrack, in this weather, against this opponent? Trust your instincts, okay? Don't get paralysis by analysis here, and it's easy to do. Most often, your gut instinct, your first instinct, that's the right play, and that's not some goofy cliche. There's some validity to that, and the reason is that the first thing that comes to mind given the situation is typically the option that you're the most comfortable with, whether you're willing to even admit that, like, consciously or not. And most often what you're comfortable with is the strategy that you'll execute with the most precision. Now that may seem to contradict what I've said thus far, but the key here is putting all of this together is not necessarily having a dead set comfort zone, but allowing the situation and your perception of it to dictate what is the most comfortable play for you. Okay, and obviously that is gained by being comfortable in a variety of areas and working to that extent, and then being able to say, oh wow, I think I have a specific advantage right here if I dial up 3, or if I dial honest, or I set up a little bit tighter on the tree, whatever the case may be, whatever that situation calls for, having the confidence and the comfort to trust that instinct to take advantage of the situation, that is what strategic flexibility is all about. And that, I think, is the point that we're all ultimately trying to reach.